2 neighbouring states, 1 connecting session. Artist Vivan Sundaram's Kasauli Centre for the Arts and historian Roopinder Singh's Tryst with the Sikhs, their faith, their culture. Roopinder, I'm looking forward to hearing more about my faith.
Are we settled? Yeah? Let's start. I was very intrigued with the title in which I was told to be a moderator, Where We Belong. It's a topic that's very close to my heart, being a displaced person from Shillong. I just heard Anjum speak about this entire sense of belonging. It intrigues a whole lot of people, I think, across India, people who've, moved from their own places of domicile. And by 2050, there would be 45 million people who will have to migrate from their own homes. So today, with me, I have Roopinder Singh and Anuradha Kapur, extremely talented people with me. I had a conversation with Roopinder before I even started this, and we started talking about his association with his religion, his family, his place. So Roopinder, sitting next to me, is a distinguished historian, a prolific author who's embarked on a compelling journey in his latest book, with an unwavering commitment to the vibrant history and the core values of Sikhism. In this book, he uncovers the profound narrative of Guru Nanak and the birth of Sikhism in the early 15th century. There is also your parents' birth centenary. Your mother, Mrs. Inderjeet Kaur, was the first woman vice-chancellor in Punjab, in North India. Your father, Gyani Gurdeep Singh, is a very well-known Punjabi scholar who wrote Mera Pind. So you were telling me that they've had a lot of impact on your writing, and especially with this topic of where we belong. I think it would be fantastic to know from you, why the book? Why did you feel this need to write this?
Actually, I'm not a self-made man. My parents kind of shaped my destiny in a lot of ways. Most of it I did not happily acknowledge till recently. And that's largely because they're no longer there. When they were there, I thought I was my own individual. Now I realize how much I owe them. That's the way life is. As far as being a Sikh is concerned, I've always been a very proud Sikh. And because of that, I carried it with me, yet I refused to write on Sikhism for at least 25 years of my journalistic career. I wrote on politics, I wrote on IT, I wrote on international affairs, everything but Sikhism. Till one day I was told to write an article on Guru Nanak. And after that, there was no stopping it, because it seemed that it was all bottled up in me and it needed to escape out of there. This particular book is my book, and yet it is a team effort, a major team effort in which I am just one of the players. Because DK Books, which has published the book, has a different way of doing books, so I'm not the author. I am the consultant for the book. It was done by a team of people. And the interesting fact about the team of people who did the book was that none of them was a Sikh. And all of them were women. That's the way it is. But it was a tremendous journey to work with them on this, to shape up something like this, which presents Sikh history in a very approachable way. So I really enjoyed every moment of working on this book. And, when I needed to learn about Sikhism, which I did because I went to America and I was supposed to talk about Sikhism and I didn't know enough, I read Khushwant Singh's book. And for people who find those many words dense, I would heavily recommend this one because it is profusely illustrated, beautifully presented, and you have these small vignettes that have come in which present history and allow you to understand it much better.
So Roopinder, I think I'm going to take a cue from what you said. You spoke about, this entire book that came out, which was a lot of feelings that were bottled up. And I think this sort of a realization happens with a lot of people when they come face to face with a certain upbringing or a place of belonging that they've had, but they've not been very conscious about it while they were growing up. So what was the turning point for you to say that this was a turning point for you to really come to face to face with this? And why do you think it was bottled up inside you?
It was bottled up because I thought I was a very modern kid with normal modern pursuits, and my heritage was not something I really wanted to develop on. Therefore, I bottled it up, just listened to it all, absorbed it at some level which I didn't quite understand till it started coming out. And yet at the same time, it's triggers. It's needing to go and deliver brown bag lectures at Columbia University, being asked to do it, doing it, and learning about it. That was one trigger. 84 was another trigger, definitely. Now, eventually a book came out of that angst, and that's my only work of fiction I've done in my life. So these things did come because of that, and there is a tremendous sense in me of belonging, of the area, of the geography, of the people I identify with, all come from here. That's why I did a little detour, went to the US, spent time there, worked there, came back. Happily so.
So I'm not going to go down to 84. Maybe we're going to get to that question a little later. Sikhs are often described as an egalitarian religion built upon values like inclusion, service. Any one of us who've gone into a gurdwara, we know how it is, the entire process there, the kindness, So these principles, manifest in the faith. What makes you Sikh, what makes Sikhism unique in this regard? And you as a Sikh, tell us a little bit about this egalitarian, this entire concept that's part and parcel of, in a world today where everybody's so confused with religion becoming such a bane and nobody wants to talk about it, right? But tell me a little bit about, because it's a very huge part of your book. I'd like to hear that from you.
Yeah. You see, seva is something we are very familiar with, all of us here. And seva comes from within. And somehow the gurus were able to bring out that aspect in us which allowed us to feel fulfilled by serving others. When I remember this earthquake that happened in the 80s in San Francisco Bay Area, the Sikhs put up stuff on their vans and took there and started serving them food. None of the people wanted to eat Indian food. This is 80s. Next day, what do? They take soup bowls and bread. They learned, they adapted, they gave them what they wanted. Now, that's the kind of seva these people do. Any odd time in any gurdwara, there is a tremendous amount of people who come there for the langar, and by and large they are welcome. Sometimes they are not, which is when they come too often, and then, according to one lady who was there, she says, all we do is we make them peel the potatoes with us. Let them do a little bit of seva and then join for langar. We eat the langar, come for seva, do something or the other. So it is ingrained in us. Seva is very much there. It's there in all of us. We all do it. We learn how to do it. In fact, we don't even learn how to do it. We just do it. It's there.
So maybe you can also narrate an inspiring, story that illustrates, the essence of being a Sikh. It's part of your book also.
The essence of being a Sikh would be, there's so many examples of people who just stood up for others. I would not narrate anything from my personal experience, that would be too narcissistic, but look at so many people who just say, "Nay, we won't allow this to happen." Why? Because we feel it's wrong. When you're standing up for your values, for your ethos, or you're standing up as a Sikh, even if you're not a Sikh. Because when you're standing up for what's right. And that is what every Sikh ought to do. Unfortunately, we don't do it as often as we ought to, but we ought to be doing that.
Sikhism also has a very distinct identity, right? And from the attire to the practices. And can you explain, what sets the Sikhs apart in terms of the appearance, lifestyle, and the reasons behind these, distinctions that we find?
See, we're all familiar with the 5 Ks which set us apart and so on. So I won't go into the concept because everybody's, here very familiar with that. But let's put it this way, that even as you go all over the world, because you have a distinctive appearance, people identify you as a member of a particular class. More often than not, you get a lot of positivity coming your way. And sometimes you simply have to be grateful for that. Of course, you get some negativity also once in a while. I mean, I've myself been chased by people because of my turban. That does happen once in a while. But who's going to dwell on that? It's a positive experience that comes through adhering to the symbols that the Gurus gave us. And why are the symbols important? Because they represent the values that the Gurus want us to inculcate in ourselves, the values that should be guiding our life, and the values that presumably do guide our lives. Those are the most important.
Do you think there's a decline in today's world, and all the values that you're talking about, there is a slight decline, and maybe many youngsters may not be following all these principles that we talk about in your book?
Absolutely. I think every generation feels that there's a decline with the younger generation. My father felt the same, and I'm sure his father felt the same. Yes, to a certain extent, there seems to be a certain decline. But I always believe in positivity, and I always think that the youngsters have a capacity to surprise us in a positive manner at some point.
So what would be the final message for, for all of them here who will pick up your book and, tell us a little about what is it that the readers should take away when they pick up this book of yours?
We are... a lot of you are totally familiar with the Sikh ethos and Sikhism and so on. But there's so many aspects which we are not familiar with, or which get eclipsed by various other factors. Especially the way this book has been constructed, it has small vignettes that remind you of what they are. It is a collection of so many little facts. The pictures have been selected in a particular manner, and it's a tremendous task doing that. Each caption gives you a different idea, and they will all trigger things which I hope will enhance your engagement with Sikhism. I mean, just one example before I close. We had a picture of the most brilliant creative people of this recent times. And you had a lovely portrait of Amrita Shergill. You have a lovely portrait of Amrita Pritam. And there was one thing left of Khushwant Singh, where he was wearing his usual patka. I put my foot down. I said, this lady is looking lovely, that person's looking lovely. I want Khushwant Singh's turban photograph, and we dug it out of somewhere and you have it there. So that in itself is worth it. You don't have too many of them. It took them some digging, but I am amazed at the way this team was able to bring out what we wanted and present it to us. And now to you.
So thank you so much, and I'm going to ask Anuradha, who's sitting next to me, who's a talented writer, strong passion for theatre and the arts, and we will talk about belonging with theatre and art. And the perspective into this book on the Kasauli Arts Centre, your contribution, which provides a very vivid glimpse of the central role that theatre and performance art played at the Kasauli Arts Centre during its vibrant existence in 76 to 1991. I mean, 76, I don't think so many people knew about this, right? And, Anuradha, your insight and stories that shed light on the cultural and artistic context of the centre and its significance. So tell us a little bit about the reason behind this book, and it was also engaged in a wide range of art activities. So could you provide an overview of some of the most notable events and activities, Anuradha, that happened in the center during those times? I think it would be phenomenal for us to travel back with you.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here, and it's very interesting to be in a session about belonging. In some senses, Kasauli Art Center is housed about 2 minutes from here at the Ivy Lodge, which belonged to Indira Shergill Sundaram and then was conceived, as the book will tell you, through several workshops by Vivan Sundaram. But I'll tell you a beginning story about how Kasauli Art Center actually came to be. And this would have been maybe early 70s. And Vivan's mother, Indira Sundaram, was here. And Vivan was visiting. And she said all the plays written here were written by Gitanjali Shri. And we all worked in various rooms, rehearsed. In the morning, we were at a seminar. In the evening, we were rehearsing. So I hear just now Roopinder talk about collaboration. There was every day, there was a sort of dialogue among people about artists and about making, but also engaging with Himachal. So there were many, I think there were about 2 camps which were with young Himachali artists, and there were 2 camps with young theatre makers from Himachal who came to work over here and created plays. And there's an interesting little history there. Many of them then went to become professional theatre artists and went to the National School of Drama or went to Bombay. But the engagement, which started as small working relationships, then became something that happened at Kasauli. Vivan then conceptualized very many workshops. And one of the workshops was with a set of German artists who came to make work here. And they made a curtain for the local Ramlila, which the children played against. And it was here in Kasauli. And it was made by German artists. And the backdrop was in use. I bring this up because I think there is this feeling of the local that moves out, flies into the imagination of many people, flies into the imagination of their work. And one of the things that truly flew or overtook the imagination of many of us who worked over here is the incredible location. And the location of the stage, which was the top of an outhouse that Vivan had actually thought of, actually seems to levitate over the Chandigarh valley and is surrounded by a little curve of the hill and has perfect acoustics, as many theatres in hills do. So I would really think that the connection of the word belonging over here means to belong and to be located right here in Kasauli, but to belong also to many works of art that are now spread over the various parts of India and abroad. And a particular interesting timing is that all archival material from the Kasauli Art Center, some of the works that were made here belong to the Chandigarh Museum. And tomorrow, exhibition of all the archival work that they're including texts, scripts, letters, shawls woven here with the help of the Weavers Center, will be on display at the Chandigarh Museum, opening tomorrow at 3. So I think that there is a kind of radiance, if you like, a kind of energy that moves out from an architectural place, Ivy Lodge, a house, and that facilitated the meeting and collaborating of many, many various kinds of artists over 3-week camps, 4-week camps, sometimes 2-week rehearsals, and the space was given out and then taken care of in each detail by Vivan so that we could all have the use of actually having an artist camp. And I'll close by saying just one more thing. What was rare about the Kasauli Art Center, and if you have a chance of looking at the book, was that it was an artist-led camp with no particular agenda. It was not an institutionally supported camp. It was an artist-led camp, and artists were invited, and they worked during the day in a way that they might have worked anywhere else, but the atmosphere of Kasauli, the atmosphere of Ivy Lodge, the atmosphere of working side by side with many people or a rehearsal happening on the stage actually contributed to what this series of workshops, collaborations, and dialogues and conversations were in the Kasauli Arts Center. It lasted 15 years, and that's quite a long time. I mean, it is quite astonishing when one looks back at it, at the way that it was able to provide both space for thinking and of being in a situation where you live collaboratively. So that's my initial thoughts, and I'd love
So
any thoughts.
the book also mentions various artists and scholars who contributed to the events at the Kasauli Arts Center. So maybe you can share some of the stories from these contributors that stand out to you, Anuradha, to you particularly, that you remember.
My experience of the camps were primarily the theatre ones in which I was participant. But one of the things that I remember most about the theatre camps was that what sometimes has become the way of working for many of us in making art or theatre or painting is that we were all working together. So Nilima Sheikh may be making like a backdrop or a curtain or an object in the space, and Gitanjali Shri may be writing the text on another level, and actors from across India might be rehearsing their lines. But what we began to understand was at that time that just as the landscape was primary to our making, so was the fact that Nilima was going to give us a curtain or an object, then that built in Kasauli, that was going to create a grammar for our work. In a way that we have Nilima Sheikh in that particular workshop had Nilima, had Anamika Haksar, had Gitanjali Shri. Many of us now have actually branched out, but into various kinds of work. But one of the things that remains, and I think that's in some senses a tie with Kasauli, was the fact that we all work collaboratively. We don't work individually. We often, even now, work together to make anything. So whether it's a play, where I might actually say, invite Nilima to do the work, to make the visualization, or Gitanjali to do a text, or an actor to come and speak Gitanjali's lines, it's all done in the spirit of having each of these disciplines running simultaneously.
The book also has a whole lot of images of artworks and photographs, and these visual elements enhances the reader's experience and understanding. So if you could just tell us a little bit about putting this entire book together. Did you choose this sort of process of putting this whole thing together? It's more photographs and less text heavy, which makes it very, very easy, very beautiful, to read and go through the whole book. So maybe we'd love to hear from you.
So I think that, as I said, it is a book which is an archive as much as a documentation, and a great number of photographs are there to give us the atmosphere of what was happening. So the photograph is not just about, let us say, so-and-so was here, but what so-and-so was doing. Yeah? And where they were making, where the painting is displayed, where the rehearsal is happening. So it is about documentation, but there are thousands and thousands of photographs that most of them, as I understand it, are taken by Vivan. Mm-hmm. So they are about like, what's happening here? You take a photograph. And the book is then sharing those photographs to see, as I said, to share the atmosphere of what is happening. And also the fact that I think photographs tell stories in ways which are very different from the words. So their stories are then about the very specific landscape and the very specific aspects of the space as they became enlivened and embodied in all the work. Yeah.
Any anecdote that you'd like to share with us that you remember that stayed back with you, because you've been with the center for so long, and obviously there's a huge connect for you. So maybe an anecdote that you remember.
Well, one of them is something that I didn't personally experience, which I said to you about the Ram Leela curtain. And, well, one of the things that I'll mention something which was one of Vivan's last works here. It's called Fall of the Slab, which you might see here, is that there was a concrete roof put on the outhouses, and then later it was, Vivan was told that the concrete is not allowed, so it must go back to the tin roof. So that means the concrete roof had to be taken down. And Vivan, interested as he is in architecture and space, decided to make an artwork of the demolition of the slab. So this was in 2017, so he decided that it was, I think, a 60 by 30 slab, and it had to be all brought down. But he decided that he took a segment, it was about 20 by 12, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, segment, which was some drilled a bit, and its corners, as it were still adhering to the larger slab. And he called all friends from Delhi, and we all came, and there were some actors, and there was a structure of bamboo put on one part of the slab that was not going to go down. And it looked very peculiar because bamboo scaffolding is usually kept things to keep something up. But it was here to help something down. But I mean, that was an inversion that he put together. And then we all sat on the side of the hillside, and drilling with the corners started. And what the idea was that at particular time, he was very clear, 6:20, when there is a certain slant of light, the slab would go down. And we had the choice of seeing it from the top, and we had also the choice of going down, where in the outhouses it would gather as rubble. So we were all given goggles and various things. And I was supposed to be looking at the performative aspect of it. So, I mean, I had all kinds of things in my head. And so we were waiting, and the actors were waiting, and the drilling started. And it went down. So finally, 6:20, the final drilling happened, and it went down. And that took 2 seconds. so it was, I mean, everybody was aghast. What was this performance going to be? Where was it going to, I mean, huge slab of concrete would have gone down in 2 seconds. So this was the artwork. It was about both demolition and the start of what Vivan has thought, and which we will now materialize. As the Shergill Sundaram Arts Foundation will actually now think of projects and plans and thinking workshops at the beginning of what he used to call, and which we continue to call SCAP, the beginning of new projects in this space that fell and now has been brought back to be able to bring in people to work and think together.
Thank you so much. I think I had the warning bell. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear, get you to ask questions. I'm sure there will be questions. Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. So this question is for you, as you have written a book on Sikhs. So I would like to know, what was that turning point where Dasmi Pashahi decided to give an identity to Sikhs?
It was a continuum. There's no turning point. It was a continuum of thought that starts with Guru Nanak and continues from there. There are various strands that came through to coalesce, and the thought and the ideas of Guru Nanak and his followers and his subsequent gurus all are in sync. So, I do not subscribe to the view that Guru Gobind Singh created something. Guru Gobind Singh finished a process of 200 years, which starts with Guru Nanak. You cannot, there are no trigger moments. Sorry. No. That's one point of view which has come across from some people, and let's leave it at that.
I have a question. May I? I have a question for you. So ultimately, what was the performance you did too?
Are you referring to the 2-second performance? Yeah. No. I'm pressing that point a bit. There was a performance on the bamboos, which was a performance. The bamboos were worked on by an artist called Asim Waqif, who works with scaffolding. So the actors were on the scaffolding, and they were also working with the material with that was part of what the debris was, so bricks and plastic sheets to put the bricks together. So it was a series of performative actions. There was not a narration. So, the element of chance and of something just happening was huge. That's why there was a collaboration between Neelaman Singh Chaudhary and myself, and we were sure that we didn't want to prepare anything. And thankfully we didn't. You know, I mean, if we had a show which was supposed to end at 6:20 where Vivan wanted the thing to go down, any leakage would have, one, we would have lost the sun, the slant of the sun, and two, I mean, we would have gone down with the slab. So no, I am exaggerating, but that's one story. There were other plays that were done, but that's in another aspect. Yeah.
We have one more question.
I just wanted some clarification. So what is the status today? Does SCAP still exist? Are there cultural activities which are planned to happen in the Ivy Lodge?
Yes. SCAP came into being when the slab fell. KSC was existing before. And we do have plans, and many plans that actually Vivan had envisaged. And so the house has been now readied for the possibility of residencies or artists working together, similar to the way that he has done. And also that a space for rehearsal, for making plays or writing plays. So that, I hope, will take off.
Thank you so much.
I don't know if this is working. It is. Thank you so much, Roopinder, Anuradha, Mohua. That's a very enlightening session.